LaMelo Ball. If you keep up with the NBA, you know that he's one of the rising stars in today's league. From the moment he got into the league, he was the face of the show in Charlotte, not only with his very flashy game, but his personality and a high social media following. But his rise to the NBA was not a straight path at all. From helping lead his team to a high school state championship in just 9th grade, to dropping out of high school at 16 years old while living in Lithuania, to everybody forgetting about him and much more. And at one point, as time went on, it seemed as if things were getting worse for him and he was turning into the next young overhyped phenom. Things got really bad for LaMelo Ball, and at that point, it seemed like there was no chance in the world that he would make the NBA. But that obviously wasn't the case. He turned everything around quickly and made a name for himself in such a short amount of time. But the question is, how did he manage to do this? What's going on, guys? Bucket Media back with another video, and today we're talking about LaMelo Ball and what his journey to the NBA was really like. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe. It's by far the best way to support this channel and ensure you don't miss out on any great basketball content like this. If we could hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, I'll announce a big giveaway, so make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, also, make sure to join the 100% free Bucket Media Discord server where we'll discuss more basketball. I'm looking to grow the Discord community more before making it a place where I put exclusive content and make special announcements, so make sure to join. If you have any video suggestions or requests, please drop a comment so I can put it on the list and create it. Also, like and comment on what you think about LaMelo Ball's story and what you think his future holds for him. And with that being said, let's dive straight into the video. LaMelo Ball was born on August 22, 2001 in Chino Hills, California. He was the youngest of three. His oldest brother, Lonzo Ball, who's the starting point guard for the Chicago Bulls, and LiAngelo Ball, who plays for the Greensboro Swarm, the G League affiliate of the Charlotte Hornets. From the second Melo was born, basketball was instilled in him. His dad, LeVar Ball, the most iconic basketball dad ever, made sure he was in school a year early so he could be able to play high school basketball with his older brothers. At the age of 4, he was already on the same basketball and football team as his older brothers, despite him being 3 years younger. Throughout his early years, he was always playing with his older brothers, whether it was in their backyard or on teams, which physically prepared him to play at a higher level. Fast forward to 7th grade, at just 12 years old, he played on his dad's travel team with Lonzo and LiAngelo, and they faced up against 17-year-olds regularly. This really prepared him for the big task at hand 2 years later. And when 9th grade hit, he attended the local Chino Hills High School, where he made history. During that past summer, heading into his 9th grade year, LaMelo committed to UCLA, which was the same school that both his brothers Lonzo and LiAngelo were committed to as well. This was an extremely early commitment for LaMelo, about 3 years earlier than most of his class would make their commitment. But the commitment came to the surprise of nobody, due to the Ball family having deep ties with UCLA, and both of his brothers being committed there as well, like I mentioned before. During his freshman campaign, he started on the varsity team along with both of his brothers, Lonzo and LiAngelo, and 2 close family friends, Eli Scott and Onyeka Okongwu. At the time, Lonzo, who was a senior, was a top 3 player in the country, committed to UCLA like I mentioned before, and soon to be McDonald's All-American. LiAngelo, who was a junior, was a 3-star player, ranked 184th in his class, and was also committed to UCLA. Scott was an unranked junior, committed to LMU, and Onyeka was a freshman who still had a lot of growing to do. Fun fact is that Onyeka actually was a top 10 pick in the 2020 NBA draft along with LaMelo Ball, and currently plays for the Atlanta Hawks. Although this team only had one top 100 player in the country, they were still the #1 team in the country and absolutely scorched everybody they play against. This Chino Hills team is arguably the greatest high school basketball team ever, not just talent-wise, but from a chemistry standpoint as well. All those years of the Ball brothers playing with each other paid off because their chemistry was unmatched and allowed them to play so fluidly with each other. They ended up with a perfect 35-0 record and didn't lose a single game, which included a massive beatdown against one of the top teams in the country and #1 team in California prior to the game, Modern Day. At the end of the season, Chino Hills secured the California State Championship, and the fact they were able to achieve all these accolades and wins as just a public school who matched up against mostly private schools, and considering they played essentially a 5-man rotation, the whole game is mind-blowing. On LaMelo's end, he played a huge part in this. He averaged 16.4 points and 3.8 assists per game while only being 5'5". But despite his legendary season with Chino Hills, he wasn't seen on any ranking sites after his 9th grade season. This was because of many reasons. Many thought he was too small at that stage, only being 5'5", but with that, he also didn't play a brand of basketball most high-level players play. He would just chuck up threes and cherry-pick most of the game according to scouts, and while having a clear weakness of getting to the basket consistently. But that didn't matter for LaMelo, because his sophomore year, he absolutely lit the grassroots scene on fire, while being the main option on his Chino Hills team with LiAngelo behind him. During LaMelo's second season of high school basketball, Chino Hills ended up with a 30-3 record. Melo averaged an absurd 26 points and 10 assists per game, which included a legendary 92-point performance against Los Osos High School in California. This 92 performance was so unreal, it garnered attention from media companies like ESPN, Fox, CBS, and so many more. But with that recognition came tons and tons of hate. A lot of analysts on the biggest platforms in the world openly said his highlights were bad for the game of basketball. He was cherry picking, he's overrated, and so much more. Around this time, Lonzo was gaining a lot of attention as a top draft pick, but with that came LeVar Ball stirring the pot even more for his two boys. LeVar was coming out saying stuff like Lonzo is better than Steph Curry, and LeVar himself said he could beat Michael Jordan one-on-one, headlining the numerous statements that broke the internet.
He's going to be better than Steph Curry in the NBA.
One-on-one, I'm undefeated, never lost.
Were you really better than Rob Gronkowski, a tight end?
At my time, yes. I was faster, stronger, jump higher. Come on.
While everyone thought this was crazy, LeVar had a secret plan behind the scenes, and that was to use these comments plus the boys' performance to grow their brand. At this point, the Ball family was the epicenter of basketball as a whole. A few months prior, LeVar also opened the Big Baller brand, which was his family brand where he sold clothing and shoes, and also took major headlines for being super overpriced. They completely took over the news, and as far as LaMelo Ball, he was by far the most famous high school basketball player on planet Earth, and to this day, arguably the most famous high school basketball player ever. But around this time, LaMelo's mom, Tina, unfortunately suffered a very bad stroke, which took a toll on the Ball family as a whole. Especially for LaMelo, being that he was the baby of the family, it was devastating for him. But as she was recovering, the show still had to go on for LaMelo, and so it did. As the Balls continued to create headlines and Lonzo got drafted to the LA Lakers around this time, LaMelo debuted in the ESPN high school rankings at number 16 while growing to 6'2". LaMelo was also faced in the most highly anticipated AAU matchup of all time, while playing for his Big Baller squad, who faced up against the number 1 player in the country and future number 1 pick, Zion Williamson. Despite losing, LaMelo did not disappoint at all, by dropping 31 points. But as the summer went on, things did not slow down for the Balls, and for LaMelo, things were about to get really crazy. LeVar decided to start a reality TV show for his family, called Ball in the Family, and around that time, LaMelo once again made history. LaMelo Ball had his first signature shoe deal at just 16 years old with the Big Baller brand, and they were called the MB1s, standing for Melo Ball 1s. The original trailer was created by Slim, and not only were the first glimpses of the shoe seen in this trailer, but since his 16th birthday just hit, his first car was leaked as well, and it was a Lamborghini. This sequence absolutely broke the internet, calling him not deserving of the shoe and Lambo, but unfortunately a sad reality came true with this. Due to LaMelo having his own signature shoe and endorsing a brand, he was no longer eligible for college, meaning that his hopes of UCLA were no longer reality. This came with a lot of pressure on LaMelo's end, not knowing what the future would hold. But the Ball family still believed that they could fight with the NCAA to try to get LaMelo's eligibility back, and despite this, still came back to play for his junior year of high school basketball. Well, not exactly. After just playing a few fall league games with Chino Hills, and Chino Hills hiring their third coach in 3 years, there was a big problem. LeVar did not get along with the new coach whatsoever, and tensions grew so bad that LeVar decided to pull LaMelo out of Chino Hills completely and homeschool him. This would mean that LaMelo wouldn't even play high school basketball completely, and what the future held for LaMelo was completely unknown. A few months later, his older brother, LiAngelo Ball, who was playing at UCLA, got into a huge shoplifting incident in China for stealing glasses at a Louis Vuitton store and was facing a major sentence in prison. But eventually, after getting past that, he was suspended indefinitely by the UCLA basketball team, which LeVar was not happy about at all. At the end of the day, LeVar's main goal was to get his two boys to the NBA as quick as possible, and he was not willing to sit down and do nothing. So once again, LeVar broke the internet by announcing he was sending both LaMelo and LiAngelo to play overseas professionally in Lithuania on a team called Vytautas, and that sealed the deal of their college eligibility being destroyed. And to put the icing on the cake, they also announced that they signed with agents. This move came with a ton of controversy, and the internet absolutely bashed LeVar, LaMelo, and LiAngelo for making the move, saying that they were too young, given that LaMelo was 16 years old and that LiAngelo was not even an NBA level prospect. But nevertheless, the move was made, and the Ball boys were on their way to Europe. When LaMelo got to Europe, he instantly struggled both on and off the court. After dropping out of high school, his education was finished, and being in Lithuania, he didn't know how to speak Lithuanian or didn't have anything to do in Lithuania. Melo even said in an interview with ESPN that he would sit in his hotel and watch movies all day until it was time for practice. But on the court, his experience wasn't any better. He struggled physically, playing with grown men, and had a hard time adapting to the professional game. With that, he struggled to earn playing time because unlike his past situations, he was with an unbiased coach and needed to adapt. It almost seemed like the move was so bad that the only people that benefited from this move was the team itself, because they were able to get more ticket sales from LaMelo and LiAngelo just being there. LaMelo played off the bench and he averaged 7 points and 2.4 assists while shooting 27% from the field, playing around 13 minutes a game for just 8 games. Although most of his play was pretty underwhelming, he had one good game where he scored 19 points and 6 assists off 50% shooting from the field and 55% from 3 in 27 minutes. But even after that, his coach still buried LaMelo on the bench, and once again, LeVar wasn't having it. At this time, although LaMelo and the Ball family were still relevant, they were not nearly as publicized as a year prior. And as far as LaMelo's basketball career, well, most people wrote him off already. ESPN and all of the other ranking sites completely took him off all the rankings, and he was in nobody's eyes an NBA prospect whatsoever. Many people thought, due to his struggles competing in Lithuania and his college eligibility being completely gone, his NBA dreams were ruined. But despite what the people had to say, LaMelo went through some huge growing pains, and those limited minutes he got in Lithuania definitely helped him when competing at the next stages of his career. But throughout LaMelo's time in Lithuania, LeVar was scheming and planning an entirely new basketball league called the JBA. The JBA was a league that was planned to be an alternative instead of college basketball. This league would pay players a minimum of $3,000 and a maximum of $10,000 per month to play in it. And it had the exact same setup and rules as the NBA, with teams spread out throughout the USA. And LeVar used that to sell this narrative to local YMCA players to join this league. Now with LaMelo coming back to the States to play basketball, it seemed as if everything was great. He spent the majority of that spring and early summer working with his team to get ready for his JBA debut. When it came time for him to suit up in the league's inaugural season, he showed out, averaging an absurd 38 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists per game in 11 games while winning the JBA championship. While these numbers may look amazing on paper, the only problem is the competition, like I mentioned before. When you look at who Melo was really playing against, most of these players weren't even on a level where they could play college basketball. So really, what did these empty stats even mean? That's what most scouts were thinking. But despite the competition, there were still some major green flags. LaMelo hit a massive growth spurt to 6'5" and filled out his cream quite a bit, while starting to gain the level of athleticism his brother Lonzo had during his later years of high school. With the short JBA season wrapping up, LeVar selected a JBA USA team to compete against professional teams in Europe for better competition. Obviously, LaMelo was selected, and through there, he garnered a little more recognition, and his game was rapidly transforming on another level. But despite his growth, one problem that LaMelo always struggled with was his attitude and love for the game. This was seen especially in the Ball in the Family reality show that I mentioned before, and in Lithuania, where even one of his teammates called him lazy, and he would goof off and show up late to JBA practices. You could just tell that his love for the game and motivation to play wasn't even there anymore. He didn't give maximum effort, and it seemed as if something was missing. But that all ended with just one simple talk with his dad about what he wanted to do with his future. He asked LeVar if he would be able to leave the JBA and finish off his senior year of high school. LeVar obviously wasn't too happy about the request, knowing that he put millions of dollars into this JBA league, and it essentially would go all to waste with LaMelo leaving. But nevertheless, LeVar did what was best for his son and let him return to high school. But now the question is, where would LaMelo go to high school? Because he can't go back to Chino Hills since he already had professional experience, so he'd be deemed ineligible to play. LaMelo enrolled at Spire Academy, which was a school in Ohio specialized for developing high-level athletes. Spire was set to play a national schedule amongst many of the best high school teams in America. Due to Spire playing an outside schedule, he was eligible to play despite his pro experience, and this was LaMelo's chance to prove to NBA scouts that they really had been sleeping on him. He would be faced up against all the big dogs in his draft class and show his development, and so he did. He absolutely balled out this time in a fashion we've never seen before. He was lighting up the high school scene, averaging a triple-double for the season and solidifying himself as one of the best players in the country, and earned his 5-star status right back. Around this time, both LaMelo and Lonzo announced that they were parting ways with the Big Baller brand due to inside circle tensions with one of the co-founders, Alan Foster, reportedly stealing over $1 million worth of the Big Baller brand's money, and the heavy stigma behind the whole situation. This made both Ball brothers free agents in the shoe deal market. And although he was able to sign a shoe deal in high school, unlike the rest of his teammates, one thing he couldn't do was participate in some of the best showcases. He was ineligible for the McDonald's All-American Game, Jordan Brand Classic, and all the other events that were still going on because he was ineligible for college and had pro experience. And around this time, most of his peers were committed to colleges and knew what their future held, but LaMelo didn't. He couldn't return to Spire because he was already done with high school, and he had to find a place to play. His options were very limited, and he wasn't able to declare for the 2019 NBA draft due to him being much younger for his grade, so he had to spend an extra season somewhere else before going into the 2020 NBA draft if he was even ready for it. LaMelo had a hard decision at hand. If he took a year off basketball or went to the wrong league, he could have lost all his momentum and be off the NBA radars completely, but a decision had to be made. And ultimately, he decided to sign a 1-year deal with the Illawarra Hawks of the NBL in Australia. This move, no question, would have given LaMelo the platform to perform in front of lead NBA executives, but the question now was, can he step up to the plate? Because last time we saw him in pro action overseas just a year prior, it didn't go well. Later that summer, LaMelo played in the Drew League, a summer league where a lot of elite basketball players play in, and even NBA players. LaMelo showed out and kept his name on a high pedestal. Around this time, scouts were just starting to scout for the 2020 NBA draft, and LaMelo was definitely on that list due to his performances in the Drew League and Spire Academy. But nothing was guaranteed, and he still had to hold on to that by playing good in Australia. On October 6, 2019 marked his first NBL game in Australia, where he put up 12 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Game after game, LaMelo was putting up great numbers, and in one game, he had a 32-point triple-double against Cairns Tapans. LaMelo became the youngest player in NBL history to record a triple-double, and he did it on multiple occasions. Following that, he set another record, being the 4th player in NBL history to drop consecutive triple-doubles. And although LaMelo wasn't dropping 30 every night, he was putting up great, well-rounded numbers while being a lead point guard, averaging 17 points, 7 assists, and 7 rebounds per game. LaMelo Ball yet again hit another growth spurt to 6'7", and after just 12 games in the NBL, he announced in January 2020 he was shutting it down for the rest of the season and would return to the United States to prepare for the 2020 NBA draft. Although he left the league early, he was still named the 2020 NBL Rookie of the Year. It didn't even matter that he didn't complete the season, because scouts were in awe of his ability to pass, score, and rebound the ball, all while being a 6'7" point guard, and he was pretty much a lock to be selected in the top 3 of that draft. Some scouts were even debating if he should be the number 1 pick in the draft. Around this time, Melo signed a shoe deal with Puma, which is worth $100 million, and would later give him his own signature shoe that we know today. A little after this, COVID hit, which resulted to the NBA draft being postponed from June to November, and fast forward to November, it was finally time. His whole journey around the whole world would lead him to this moment. The Charlotte Hornets selected him with the 3rd pick in the NBA draft, and just like that, LaMelo Ball was an NBA player. So far, LaMelo Ball's NBA career has been looking very promising as he secured the 2021 NBA Rookie of the Year at the end of his rookie season, while being the face of the Charlotte Hornets franchise. Between his first 3 seasons in the NBA, he's been averaging 18.4 points, 7 assists, and 6.3 rebounds a game. LaMelo's NBA career definitely has a lot of potential, and I'm looking forward to keeping up with it. But one thing's for sure, is that his journey to get to the NBA was a one of one. If LaMelo Ball's journey to the NBA can teach us anything, it's that when you want something in life, it won't always go the way you want it to. LaMelo wanted to finish his high school years, go to UCLA, and be in the NBA just like that, but stuff just didn't work out like that. He had to move to multiple different places, find the right fit, develop his game, and go through many more obstacles before becoming the player we all know him today to be. But most importantly, no matter how rough things got and no matter how many people wrote him off, the number one thing is LaMelo always believed in himself. He never gave up, and at times where it seemed like he lost it all and it was on pace to becoming the next overhyped high school phenom, he stuck with it. And like I mentioned before, LaMelo Ball's journey to the NBA is truly a one of one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to the end and you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It is by far the best way to support me and help this channel grow. And I appreciate you so much if you're a returning or new subscriber. Stay tuned because we have something big coming soon. If you haven't already, make sure you join the Discord link in the description. Like the video and comment on any video suggestions for the future or anything I could have done better. Also, comment on what you guys think of LaMelo Ball's journey and LaMelo Ball as an NBA player. Or which player should I make a video on next for their journey to the NBA? Let's get a great basketball conversation started. I'll see you guys in the next video and have a blessed day. Peace.